Grace be unto you and peace from God our Father and from the Lord Jesus Christ. I was glad when they said to me, "Let us go into the house of the Lord." I'm Father Steve Summers, and thank you so much for tuning in today for this brief daily message of hope. And on this day, the day after the 4th of July, July the 5th, I'm just taking a moment to think about a person who's been on my mind this past weekend, someone who doesn't get talked about very much in the context of the founding fathers of this country, because there were other people other than men who helped at the founding of this country during its War of Independence against Great Britain. And that's a woman by the name of Mary Catherine Goddard, a woman who's extraordinary, who was alive not only then. I think she was born in 1738. She died in 1816 at the age of 78. She never married. She was born into the Goddard newspaper printing family. And after the death of her dad, she and her mother and her brother William tried to piece together the newspaper printing empire that was so important in the founding of this country and in the dissemination of information. And Mary Catherine Goddard wound up at the time of the War of Independence, when the shooting broke out in 1775, being the editor-publisher of the Maryland Gazette, her family's newspaper, and she was also the Postmaster General in Baltimore, a position that her father had also had. And so she was in an amazing position to help in the founding of this nation, and she did. She's the only woman whose name appears on the Declaration of Independence. And that happened in an amazing way. After the vote was taken on July the 2nd of 1776 and affirmed on July the 4th, 1776, to separate from England, the people who voted for that knew that it was going to take more than words for that to happen. Words can be very cheap. Words can go by very fast unless they're backed up by action. And that's true for our faith too. The New Testament love that is mentioned is an action verb. Love always manifests itself in action. True love does. And that's from 1 John 3, verse 18, the first letter of John, chapter 3, verse 18, where John says, "My dear friends, let us don't just love with words, but let it be action that shows our love." And indeed, that's what happened in this founding of our nation. After the Declaration of Independence was voted on, it was printed and disseminated, but without the signatures. I think the only signature on the first copies was the signature of the president of the Second Continental Congress, John Hancock. It wasn't until January of 1777 that the copy of the Declaration with all the signatures, the 56 names on it, was actually printed and disseminated. And it was printed by Mary Catherine Goddard. What had happened was that as the war began, General Washington was actually driven with his forces out of New Jersey. And at the early part of December 1776, things didn't look good for the fledgling United States of America. As a matter of fact, they had to sneak out of Philadelphia, taking the copy they had of the Declaration, and they fled to Baltimore. And it looked in December like this revolution was going to be very short-lived. Until December 24th, when Washington crossed the Delaware and took the British soldiers by surprise in Trenton and in Princeton, and the war suddenly looked different. It looked winnable to many. So in early January, the Second Continental Congress authorized another copy to be printed, this one with all the signatures on it. And there were, I think, all but one signature was there because the person hadn't had a chance to sign it yet. But at the very bottom of it had the signature of the person who printed it. The Goddard Printing Company, run by Mary Catherine Goddard, printed the broadside, the Goddard broadside of the Declaration, the one that has all the signatures on it. At the very bottom of it has the names of 55 men on it who were the signers. And at the very bottom it said, in Baltimore, in Maryland, printed by, she usually signed her name, M.K. Goddard. M.K., the initials. This time at the bottom of the Declaration, as big as life at the bottom, printed by Mary Catherine Goddard, the only woman whose name appears on the Declaration. And it's the action that takes place. It's not so much the words. And in our faith, in our lives, let us make sure that we love with more than just words. Let us be passionate about our actions. Make sure that our love, our compassion, our mercy for others always shows forth in action. That's how the Lord loved us, backing up his words of love by giving his life for us. And let us dedicate our lives to him and his service as we try to make a difference in our world today. God bless you on this Monday morning, and I hope you have a wonderful day today and look for opportunities to share compassion and kindness with those who need it. God bless you, and I'll hope to see you here again tomorrow.